Today, we're taking a look at 23 iPad games with mouse and keyboard support. Many forget that one of the biggest App Store games has mouse and keyboard support on iPad. Minecraft! It works pretty well, just like you'd play it on a PC or Mac. One issue is that sometimes the Apple on-screen cursor won't disappear, or your mouse may become unresponsive after you close in-game menus. I found to fix this issue, just raise the app open from the home bar and then reopen it. Feral Interactive have brought mouse and keyboard support to most of their titles on iPad. Alien Isolation is basically the only AAA first-person game on iPad with this support. A custom mouse cursor will be displayed on screen when navigating menus too. I strongly recommend playing with a 2-button mouse for this game on iPad. Right-click is very important for aiming down sights for ultimate precision, and it's just not easy on a trackpad or a magic mouse. To be fair, Terraria plays great with the touch controls or even a controller, but I think for the best experience, mouse and keyboard support is the way to go, and now it's just like playing the game on PC. Everything is just so much easier to do. I also like that the game has a custom mouse cursor. Yes, you can play one of the best puzzle adventure titles from PC on iPad with mouse and keyboard support. This is the definitive way to play the game, especially for solving puzzles and exploring all the worlds. Now, yes, it's just like playing the game on PC. Divinity Original Sin 2 on iPad is exactly the same experience as found on PC, from graphics to controls. It's definitely much better to play the game with mouse and keyboard over controller on iPad or even on PC. However, I would still argue that the game is perfectly playable with the touch controls, but it's one of the few big AAA games with this peripheral support on iPad, so it's definitely worth putting on this list. The game also has its own in-game cursor. Wildflowers on iPad works perfectly with a keyboard. While it doesn't have official mouse support, you can quite comfortably use Apple's on-screen cursor for all menu interaction and so forth. But you don't even actually have to use the mouse because the whole game is completely playable on the keyboard. Fun fact, Pascal's Wager was the first iPad game to add mouse and keyboard support back in 2021. The game is basically Dark Souls on mobile, but with worse graphics. It's definitely easier to play with mouse and keyboard over touch, but I'd still argue that the game is best played on a controller for parrying and timing attacks. But I still wanted to put the game on the list because why would I not? Now, the game doesn't have a keyboard layout, but if you go into settings, you can see what keys do certain actions and you can try to remember those and yeah. Strategy games have always worked pretty well with just touch controls, but for some who want a PC experience, Feral's Total War Medieval 2 has full mouse and keyboard support on iPad. A custom cursor will be displayed on screen too, selecting units, configuring a battle map, and rotating the camera is much easier this way, I find. Coromon has full keyboard support on iPad. Now, yes, it doesn't have mouse support, but it's perfectly playable with Apple's on-screen cursor, especially for battles. Now, it's worth noting, the UI also doesn't change when you use a keyboard, but all the actions are so easy to remember, from walking around with the WASD keys or arrow keys, running with Z, and interacting with spacebar. Fun fact, The Guidance Between was the first game to add keyboard support to iPad like over 5 years ago. Playing with the keyboard isn't going to help you with puzzle solving here, but it's fun to use, I suppose. It doesn't have mouse support, but you don't need it. You can play the game solely with just the keyboard. Yeah. Feral Interactive will appear a lot in this video. They added mouse and keyboard support to their RTS Company of Heroes. If you play with these peripherals, I strongly suggest using the command panel control method. This provides a better desktop RTS experience. I also recommend you play with a 2-button mouse for the best experience for this game. I had no idea Sky worked with a keyboard before making this video. It's worth noting the game doesn't have mouse support. Instead, to look around, you will use the arrow keys. It's not the traditional way to play a third-person adventure game, but it actually works surprisingly well. You will also interact with things using the F key. You can move around with WASD and jump with spacebar, you know, just how it's done on PC. There is no advantage playing Loop Hero with a mouse and keyboard, but it has the support, so it's in this video. You can use the Apple on-screen cursor to interact with the menus and use the keyboard for navigating the loop and for combat. Not a big fan of this free MMORPG, but some of you might like to know it has keyboard support. It's worth noting the game doesn't have mouse support, but you can play the game pretty much with just the keyboard for combat. For menu interaction, just use Apple's on-screen cursor. The UI changes for keyboard and shows you the keys that you're going to be using for combat and so forth. These buttons, mind you, are very overwhelming. They take up a lot of the screen. Another thing, be sure to turn off auto combat, as it's really annoying when using a keyboard. Here is a nice retro action RPG, Aruna's Adventure. The game almost has full keyboard support, as it works for menu interaction and gameplay, but there is no on-screen keyboard layout. Regardless, it's easy to play. Use WASD keys or arrow keys to move around, space to attack, shift to dash, M to open the map, and I for inventory. Easy. This action-adventure game, Hitman Blood Money Reprisal, was originally released for console and PC back in 2006, but this version is vastly improved with better graphics and controls. It's another Feral game, and obviously it has full mouse and keyboard support. Using a mouse is amazing for this game. Getting sneaky little headshots is so much easier. Just note, a 2-button mouse is a must for this game. TMNT Splintered Fate comes with full keyboard support on iPad, which honestly surprised me. The UI will change accordingly too, and tell you what keys to press for combat and so forth. There is no mouse support here, but you don't need it for this one. You can play it just with the keyboard fine. Baba Is You is a puzzle game. A weird one, but it's good. The game has keyboard support. Well, partial. It works for selecting levels, skipping cutscenes, solving puzzles, and so forth. But some of the menu interaction doesn't work with your keyboard. But I think this is the same story on PC, so just use your little fingers or Apple's on-screen mouse cursor. You can either use the WASD keys or arrow keys to move the little character around. You can press Z to undo and R to restart a level. Towers of Everland is a combat RPG game. It is based on a grid-like system. It's really cool. You can use the WASD keys to move forward and back and left and right, and you can use the arrow keys to look left and right, if that makes sense. There's also space to attack and shift to block and R to heal. Same as the Mac version. XCOM 2 on iPad is amazing. It's the same turn-based strategy experience found on console and PC. It just has reduced graphics. Now, while it doesn't have official mouse and keyboard support, it's actually pretty playable with one. It does have partial support for keyboard, and you can use just Apple's on-screen cursor to do things. You can move the camera around with the WASD keys. Q and E is for rotating the camera, tab to switch targets, soldiers, and many other shortcuts are working as well. Shattered Pixel Dungeon is a traditional roguelike dungeon crawler RPG. You simply use the WASD keys or arrow keys in this one to move around, for opening chests, items, and for engaging in combat. There is no mouse support, but you don't need it. You can just use your fingers or Apple's on-screen cursor. Now for this one, The Binding of Isaac, you'll be just using your keyboard. You'll be moving around with WASD, you'll shoot with the arrow keys and drop bombs with E. It's, I believe, the same as you'd find on PC and Mac. The only issue is that you can't get back to the main menu without using the touchscreen. Our last game to look at is another Feral Interactive title that obviously has mouse and keyboard support. It would be Sid Meier's Railroads. Now, I have no idea how to play this game. I forgot. I made this like little whatever this is place a few years ago, or when did this game come out? But I made it a while ago and I forgot how to play, so I'm just like exploring around with the mouse and keyboard and so forth. It's exactly the same as you would find on PC, and it has a custom cursor. So, what do you think of this list of iPad games with mouse and keyboard support? Compared to a few years ago, quite a number of games are now receiving support for mouse and keyboard, which I think is very good to see. It's interesting because it kind of turns your iPad into a little gaming laptop. I wouldn't be surprised if in a few years it will be the norm for most new games to have this support, because it's coming more rapidly these days as well. But we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, my name's Stewie, and thanks for watching. You guys have a good day.